Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got this beautiful 2024 Perkins Pipes commemorative pipe from Catholic Pipe Company. We're a little bit overcast here today in central Indiana, so I don't know that this is going to pick up just how gorgeous the deep red is in the coloring of this bowl, but I do love this one very, very much. And I'm wearing a hat given to me by a friend of mine. And there's a reason I wanted to bring a friend hat out for this episode. So as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. I want to do another episode here with you about something that Alexander Pope wrote about and to his friend Jonathan Swift. And I just did an episode where Pope had written a letter to another friend about their mutual friend Jonathan Swift. But this again is coming from Maynard Mack's Alexander Pope, A Life, which, as you can see, quite the hefty tome. And at the end of Swift's life, Pope wrote this to him, or this is from a letter he wrote to him. He says, "My dear friend, when the heart is full of tenderness, it must be full of concern at the absolute impotency of all words to come up to it." Now, first of all, can we just acknowledge for a moment, Alexander Pope was perhaps the greatest poet of his age, one of the greatest writers in the English language. And he says, when the heart is full of tenderness, it must be full of concern at the absolute impotency of all words to come up to it. Even a wordsmith like Alexander Pope knew that there are things in the heart that just cannot be adequately expressed in words. He says, "You are the only man now in the world who cost me a sigh every day of my life," because they were separated. Swift, I think, was out of the country at the time. "And the man it troubles me most, although I most wish to write to." See, he says, it troubles me to write to you because I know you're in ill health. I know things are not going well for you, and yet I really want to write to you. "Death has not used me worse in separating from me forever. Poor Gay, Arbuthnot, etc., than disease and distance in separating you so many years." These guys had lost a couple of mutual friends, John Arbuthnot and John Gay, a couple of fellow writers. And he says, the separation from them by death is not even as bad as the separation from you these many years that Swift had been out of the country. "But nothing shall make me forget you, and I am persuaded you will as little forget me. And most things in this world one may afford to forget, if we remember and are remembered by our friends. Think it not possible that my affection can cease but with my last breath." Now, there's several things I want to reflect on with you. Do you have friends like that? The friend who gave me this hat is such a friend. His name is Jeremy. He's the one who gave me the RBC meerschaum. I should have brought that up for this video. But you can see that in many of my other videos. He used to teach at a school with me. And then he left teaching to become a pastor. I was very happy for him. And on his last day, we stood in my room to say goodbye. And I'm going to freely admit it, I cried. Didn't think I would, but I did. Jeremy meant and means that much to me. Do you have friends like that? As Pope says, the separation of death of some of these other friends, painful though that separation was, doesn't hold a candle to the separation from you, my friend. And then he says, here at the end, although this isn't the end of the video, nothing shall make me forget you, and persuaded you will as little forget me. And then he says this, he says, most things in this world one may afford to forget if we remember and are remembered by our friends. Would you actually agree with that? I know we'll all say, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Relationships, family, friends, these are the most important things in life because we know that's what we're supposed to say. But is that the case? I remember a great many things. I remember things about history. I remember things about literature and philosophy and theology and so forth. Would I be content, should my memory fail me, to know that at least I remembered my friends and that my friends remembered me? Would that content me as much? As someone who lives much of his life in the mind, I hope so. I'm not sure, but I hope so. And then he says, think it not possible that my affection can cease but with my last breath. I want to talk to the men here for a moment. Ladies, I appreciate you watching this channel, and I think there is something in this next section for you. You undoubtedly have some men in your life, relatives, friends, husbands, whatever. Guys, we don't talk like that, do we? This is the mid-1700s, the mid-18th century. We're now pushing toward the middle of the 21st century. We're 300 years separated from the time that Pope wrote this letter to his friend. How much has changed. Think about your buddies. Think about the guys that you are the closest with. Would you ever even write them a letter to begin with? Not a text, not an email. Would you ever write any of them a letter? Would you begin, my dear friend? When the heart is full of tenderness, it must be full of concern at the absolute impotency of all words to come up to it. Now, admittedly, most of us aren't going to write that because we don't have that kind of style. Right? We're not that gifted with our words. But to go on and say how you're the only person now in the world that I grieve to be separated from. And then that last line, think it not possible that my affection can ease but with my last breath. Now, to be fair, all right, some of that is idiom, some of that is style, and in the 21st century, we just don't use phrases like that. But setting that aside, guys, can you admit that you love your brother? Your physical brother, if you've got brothers? Or your brothers? Your friends? Band of brothers? Can you admit that you love them? Now, I've got a couple of, well, I've got several male friends that I interact with a lot, and when we'll part, we'll like give each other, kind of the manly embrace, and say, yeah, love you, brother. We'll say that. I think one of the things that has been lost in the modern world, especially at least here in the West, and I can't speak intelligently about other cultures, but is the loss of male relationships. Somehow or another, we've gotten the sense that male to male expressions of affection are somehow improper, somehow indicative of something sexual. And honestly, most of the world, most of the time, I think that's just not been true. Men have been free to express those thoughts. So, do you have friends like that? Would you ever share such thoughts like that? Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.